there's under 3,800 billionaires in the world.
Wow.
And you're one of them.
Yeah.
You know, oftentimes we're like, playing the NFL, you're in that such small percent.
Yeah.
You're in a smaller percent.
Yeah.
I think playing the NFL is cool. But I think being a billionaire would be really cool in a way.
Would you give up your career right now, 5 years in?
No, I could not do it. Now, everyone was like, you're like, well.
But you would ask if you could put it on layaway?
Yeah, I'll actually put it on layaway.
And it's intercepted by Marlon Humphrey.
Marlon Humphrey is without a doubt in the conversation to be the best corner in football.
How we doing, guys? We are here with Steve Bisciotti, the Ravens owner, here in Studio 44. Steve, thank you for tuning in today.
You're very welcome. Very welcome.
So I think it's important. When I started Studio 44, I had Eric DeCosta on here, and I asked him a question. If he could relay a message to you, which I don't think he did, so since I have you here, I asked him, what would it take for me to borrow your private jet?
I saw that question.
Yes, so now you never relayed the answer through email or text or in person, so now I got you here.
Well, I think Eric gave you a pretty good answer, didn't he? If I remember correctly, he said, I think we could work that out if you can renegotiate your contract.
Oh, okay.
Remember?
Yep.
See, that's what you get for me actually paying attention to Studio 44.
We'll have to talk about that one off air.
Yeah.
That'll probably be a better off air answer.
By the way, real quick, do we charge you rent for the studio?
There's still some kinks in the
We're
contract.
working that
still
out.
working that out. It's another off air.
Good, because you definitely can get a employee discount.
Okay, yeah.
Before it becomes a salary cap violation.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. So I know we've talked about this before. How did you kind of get to where you are now? I know you started a company, Aerotech. I was unaware that it started in your basement.
Yes, sir.
What I hear. When you I think it's always interesting. Everyone's always trying to start a business. And as we know, so many businesses fail, some rise. Yeah. What was kind of the idea in your mind when you first started that company?
Well, I had gotten out of college and older fella in my neighborhood that I adored. You know, he taught me how to play the guitar. He taught me how to water ski, taught me how to drive his Volkswagen Bug. And he was out and he was in this industry, in high-level placement of engineers. He got me a job. I worked for about 15 months and the company kind of imploded. We're not well financed, and so, they say sometimes you're too dumb to fail. And I was, figuring, I can do this, and I was 23 years old. But I knew I could do it. I knew I could do it better than the company that I had worked for. So I talked my two roommates who were bartenders into letting me tear out the bar in the basement of our townhouse that we shared. And I went to Goodwill and bought a bunch of desks and a couple old phones and started my business right like that with 2 weeks' notice. Wow,
did you think it would grow? Like, did you have that vision already that it would grow that
No, certainly not at that time. I knew that I could do it better. And as I got successful, it simply was the salesperson that I had assigned. I was handling the Baltimore market, and the person that I assigned to the Northern Virginia market started doing very well. And of course, he'd get caught in traffic and it would be an hour and a half drive. And so we finally said, we've got 6 or 7 contract engineers working down there, bite the bullet, open an office and move Mike down there. And then we did the same when we started cracking into Philadelphia. And then we did the same when we cracked into Orlando. So we grew organically, knowing that we had a system that we thought worked anywhere and we could replicate. So that's when I started realizing that there was no stopping the company and that we could become a national company, and then we just went to work.
And when you were working that, how much did you, because we've spoken on this before in the past, you told me you really, really enjoyed when you were doing that a lot. How was it kind of when you were doing that?
I always say there's an expression, the wolf at the door. Yeah. And some people are scared of that wolf, and other people are motivated by that wolf. And so I loved the fear of the wolf. And so I woke up every morning thinking that wolf was going to blow my house down. And so I worked like it was the last day I had a chance to prove myself. And when you continue with that attitude, that underdog mentality, that fear of failure, if you're willing to put the work in like that, if that drives you, then you win.
And so obviously becomes very successful. And then you go on to buy the Ravens, minority at first. What kind of went into going?
Yeah, it was interesting. I had opened up maybe 200 offices, traveled an awful lot, went all over the country. And my dad died when I was almost 9. My brother was 10, and my sister was 11. And I got to the point where it was like 1997, and my boys were 12 and 10. And I just went to my business partner and said, you know, he had maybe one little baby at the time. And I said, you know, I'm now at the stage, I was only 37 years old, but I said, you know, now I'm looking at my boys and I'm realizing that I was without a dad with no choice. And they were without a dad because I was addicted to working 60 and 70-hour weeks. And I said, I've got to stop that. So I promoted he was my second employee that I hired in 1983. And in 1997, I made him the president and was able to not be the first in the door and the last to leave. Kind of took a back seat and became his sounding board. Still worked very hard, but not, 12-hour days. And then this just came along. I was, I realized once I had more time for the boys, they didn't really want more time with me. I mean, I missed practices and I missed, 10-year-old Wednesday night basketball games sometimes. And then when I started going to their practices, I realized with 15 kids on this team, there might be 2 dads there watching practice. And in my mind, there were 14 and I was the only one missing. And so I kind of realized that maybe they had other interests and, they'd come home from school and I'd say, oh, let's do this or let's do that. And they're like, no, we want to play video games over at Chano's across the street. So then I found myself a little bored. And then this really just stumbled upon me. The Bank of America knew how big my business was. We were private. We still are private. And they knew I probably had the capacity to do it. So they came to me and said, Art Modell's looking for a partner. And the more we dug into it, the more I realized that I wasn't interested in just being a minority partner forever. So Art and I sat down with our representatives and negotiated a deal where I would do it, but I needed an option to own the whole thing. And he wanted 5 years, I wanted 3. We settled on 4. He was looking for 25%. He said, if I'm giving you the option, then you got to give me half of it. So I bought 49% in 2000. And he wasn't going to get that. He was going to have to sell the whole team right away if I didn't come up with a pretty good deal. And it worked out for him and it worked out for me because the very next year he won his only Super Bowl. And so it's one of my proudest things to give Art the opportunity to get refunded by my money. The first thing they did was go out and get some high-priced free agents, and we won the Super Bowl that year. So he finally fulfilled his goal. And I got to be a fly on the wall. So because I had no power, I didn't have to make decisions. And so I explained it to people as it's like going to college for 4 years and you have to go to class, but you never get tested. And I loved learning. I just didn't like being questioned on what I had learned because maybe I only learned 70%. So I had to work to make sure I got that C. And so that's what I got. I got a 4-year apprenticeship when I did not have to make a single decision. And by the time I took over, I felt like I was way more prepared than anybody else that steps in and just takes over.
So for those years, I think anything you do, learning is such key. What kind of did you learn in those years? What are like 1 or 2 things that you think you learned that just was really
well,
amazing?
really learning the way the salary, free agency, salary cap, all that stuff was fairly new. That free agency didn't come till '93. Okay. And so it was learning the ins and outs, like really trying to understand the business. But what I was pleasantly surprised to learn was that the culture that Art had built was so aligned with what I did that 4 years into it, I came in here and I did not replace a single employee. They were exactly the kind of people that I used to pick for my company, and Art was an incredible judge of character. And so what I learned the most, the biggest thing was I picked the right company because Art Modell had this thing on a tee for me to carry on. I didn't have to come in and teach them culture, hard work. It was just a brilliant, wonderful thing for me. So I was very fortunate.
And also with culture, you know, I feel like something that's really similar here is consistency. As the more I get to know people around the building, they'll show me pictures of, they've been there for so long, and Harbaugh's been there for a while, Ozzy's been there for so long, and I think all that consistency, why do you feel that consistency is something that obviously you believe in so much along with culture?
Continuity of staff is the foundation of culture. If you have a lot of turnover,
You can't establish it.
the culture is always changing. You're always trying to catch up. You're usually disappointed, but the minute these players step in here, when they see somebody like Ozzy that's been here for 30 years, and Dick Cass, who was my first and only president, and John Harbaugh was my first and only. I mean, Brian Billick was here for the first 7 years I was here, 3 when I was majority, and when I went out looking for a coach, John struck me as the kind of guy that I could be proud of standing up. Number one, he was a football family, which helps, like you were, right? You go in knowing what to expect. He spent his life as a ball boy on the fields of University of Michigan while his dad coached there. So John really spoke to me, and here we are in our 15th year, and sometimes as a sounding board for John, I'm like, you don't have to be great, you have to be consistent. Consistency is great, and being consistent is to me the epitome of being great, and John's proved that. So
you talk about consistency and all those things. How I think it's interesting. You see the different types of owners in the league. You obviously don't know how everybody handles their team. Yep. You're somebody that comes around pretty often. The guy you just spoke to us today. How involved do you get as far as during the season, off season? I hear you really love the draft.
You love the draft.
So we can talk about the draft.
Yeah.
And actually I remember when I got drafted, my dad was, I guess you guys had a conversation, and he was saying something about screens or something, like nobody ever got screens when it was on my side or something. Yeah. So he was like, he knew all your stats, Marlon. I'm like, well, they usually do. But he was raving about that. So tell me what it is about the draft it's obviously you're investing in your future.
Yeah.
What about the draft that excites you so much?
Well, the renewal, you kind of spend March losing players. Yeah. And, because we draft well, we lose a lot of players. When you lose a lot of players and they sign deals, then you get compensatory draft picks. So it's a viciously positive cycle. It's a vicious cycle, but it's a positive one. So because we have to sign you because of your production, and Ronnie and Mark, there's some guys that deserve it, but we can't afford it. And so when we let them go, we turn around and get third and fourth round comp picks. So we have more comp picks than any team in the league by a fairly good margin. I think the Packers do that a lot too. So they're built. So here's the answer. They're paid for. They're built into our budget. So it's like going out shopping with somebody else's credit card. It's like flying on my plane when you don't have to pay for it, right? So they're built into our budget. So I've got 11 players that we can select. And it's the dead time. It's January through late April. And it's kind of like the salve of the wound when you don't win a Super Bowl. you're disappointed at the end. You sulk. You watch grudgingly the teams that are advanced further in the playoffs than you, and then the combine starts, and the Senior Bowls, and Eric starts feeding me players, and then I don't ask him for our list because he doesn't have it built yet, but you can get all the mock drafts in the world and look up the top 50 players, and if you looked at 10 drafts and you looked at the top 50 players, about 80 to 90 or 100 are represented because everybody has their different opinions of who the top 50 are. So I just start with those 100 players, and I just start going back, and I start reading stats, and then I go on YouTube, and I'm invited when I look at, when I get on the internet, it invites me to look at his stats, and then he invites me to look at, his highlights. Everybody did you make one of those highlight tapes?
Yeah, I think everybody has one.
Right?
Yeah.
And I turn down the music most of the time but they're fun. And then I look at them, and then I will look at some of the things that will say, studied these 5 games, best game studied, worst game studied. And I go off and I look at those worst games because you can't look at guys' highlight tapes.
Yeah, you got to look at the bad stuff.
You got to look at the whole thing. And then I read about them, and I like reading about them, and any interviews they have, I start doing it, and I start looking for those character guys. I'm constantly looking at what our scouts say, then I'll read the scouting reports. Let's face it, if the people around the University of Alabama didn't like you, then I don't care about your tape. Why would I waste my time?
Yeah.
So by the time I get there, like I said, it's the off season, and I can't switch off. So I love it. I drive Eric crazy. I think he makes stuff up. If I really like a guy and I'm banging on him, he goes, "Oh, he got kicked out of school," and he's just lying. It's just like I can't. If he brings that tight end up one more time, I'm going to scream.
Has there ever been a player that you were just? I think, anytime you draft someone in the first round, you always think this guy's going to be a guy. Has there ever been a guy that you were just like 100% he's going to be this guy, he's going to be able to do everything, and he was able? I know you've been here for a while. Yeah. Has there ever been that guy that you can think that comes to mind that was like that?
Oh, gosh.
That you were just for sure confident that they were just going to be everything.
That's real. Oh, and then now this is where I have to be honest with you. I spend less time worrying about the first rounders because I believe that 80% of the time that my scouts spend are on those guys. Mm-hmm. So I'm not good enough to do that.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Right? In other words, I can love Ronnie Stanley and DeForest Buckner and start watching them because I know we've got the 6th pick, the lowest pick we had. And I can see DeForest Buckner because he's a splash player, and Ronnie's a offensive lineman. I can't study offensive linemen, right? So I wanted a pass rusher at 25, and we took Linderbaum. And I was teasing him. I said, "You guys I'm looking for girlfriends. You're looking for wives." Because I want the flashy pass rusher.
Flashy.
And, so I look at corners and pass rushers and wide receivers and tight ends, and, I can see them. They're out in space. Kind of hard for me to look at defensive tackles and offensive linemen.
So are you kind of saying a little bit that you didn't really, basically you're involved, but you're letting others do their job.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've never ever overruled anybody. No, it's just I might be a little forward and say to John, take a look at this. Take a look at this Isaiah Likely. He looks like he's a little different, and I love productive people, even if it's smaller schools. So I might turn John on to some people, but that's not my job to pick them.
That is very humble of you. I also saw a quote that you did not care to be a very known owner. You like the low-keyness of not being too known as far as an owner.
Yeah.
Why is because I only say that because if I was an owner, everybody would know I'm the owner of the ball. I wouldn't be doing
You've got
too much.
You've got
but-
the wardrobe for it.
Yeah, I mean, we can. You're looking sharp, but we could
You could dress me up.
just a little bit. But why is it that you want to kind of? Because you see the Jerry Jones who's
Yeah.
really public, and you see some guys that you never see,
Yeah.
and then why is it kind of that you take the low key kind of route?
I can see. My personal feeling is that when I was running Aerotech, I knew that business better than anybody. So I felt like I should be the leader, like I should be the one front and center. When I got this, I knew I would never catch up to the talents of the coach and the president and the GM. And so it really wasn't humility, it was intelligence. It was just like, I don't want to be front and center because there's always somebody in this organization that's smarter than me in every single category. And then, you've heard the expression that the only thing better than being rich and famous is being rich.
Yeah, you're pretty decently rich, I think.
So you don't need fame.
You don't need.
It doesn't
fame.
really get you anything.
It does not. It does not. I was actually Googling yesterday. There's under 3,800 billionaires in the world.
Wow.
And you're one of them.
Yeah.
Oftentimes we're like, playing the NFL, you're in that such small percent.
Yeah.
You're in a smaller percent.
Yeah.
I think playing the NFL is cool. But I think being a billionaire would be really cool in a way.
Would you give up your career right now, 5 years in?
No, I could not do it. Everyone was like, well.
But you'd ask if you could put it on layaway?
Yeah, I'll actually put it on layaway. But as cool as that would be really cool. But I have to get a Super Bowl. So what kind of is, because I know as an athlete, all of us, if you're not extremely careful, there's so many ways to get taken advantage of. I'm currently building a house, and it's like every step is someone's trying to take advantage.
Yeah.
How do you I don't even know if that even happens when you're at your level.
Oh, it happens even worse.
Even worse.
Sure.
Recently, someone just asked me for $20,000 to take their kids to Disney.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even cost $20K to take. But
Right.
how does that kind of
They wanted the down payment on the car
to
get to Disney
get
to then pay for Disney.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how kind of is that dealing with those type of issues?
Instinctively, it's very, very hard to say no. But I learned that as a salesman, I thrived on no. To me, I used to tell my salespeople, you better smile every time somebody says no, because you're one step closer to a yes. And if our statistics say that we get a yes every 22 times, then I want 22 no's by lunchtime. Don't drag. Don't let the no's beat you down. So I was able to carry that over and be on the other end of that and just say no to people that asked. Now, I'm not saying people that I care about, but you're asked a lot. Saying no to reputable charities is probably the hardest thing about being as wealthy as I am, because 90% of them are reputable, but you can't spread yourself out that thin, or else you won't make the kind of impact that we're making with the HBCUs and things like that. So you have to pick and choose, and you have to say no to some very worthwhile organizations. Once you're saying no to worthwhile requests, it becomes really easy to say no
to the Disney
trip.
To the Disney trips.
Right.
And you just spoke on it there with HBCU, with the foundation. Yeah. You've always made it pretty known that that's something that's a part of you, giving back and it being known. And I think, in this world, there's so much going on. There's so many people that need help.
Yeah. You
could spend your money in a lot of different places, but you've made it known to always give back. What kind of drives you to help others and be involved? A lot of times you can throw money at anything, but you seem to really, when you throw money at something, you have a plan for truly trying to help. You had the kids out there today. What kind of goes into those decisions?
Yeah, I like to feel like I can make an impact, and that's why you gotta pick and choose, and you gotta do things that really means something to you, as I explained about, finding out that the HBCUs had been underfunded for so many years in Baltimore, and quite frankly, it pissed me off. And I read that and realized that the state was putting up a fight for years before a judge finally agreed to a settlement. And it was, I think it was I said it under the tent after I talked to you, and I think it was closer to $500 million for these 4 schools. And I just thought, damn, we gotta make a difference here. And it just was wonderful that I thought of Ozzie as to name the scholarships after he shepherded this business from the day I walked in here in 2000 and shook his hand and watched the kind of character that he had. And so it just worked out. It was like the timing was perfect, and the person that I admire most in this organization, that I could tie these scholarships to Ozzie. So it's really fun. I probably don't give as much time as I could. There are a lot of people out there that are much more generous with their time than me. And instead of being discouraged by it, I realized that there's also a lot of times where there's a lot of people that are willing to give their time, but they don't have the money. So when I'm looking at charities, I'm trying to figure out, right? So if we're looking at getting Christmas, gifts for kids, and I see you guys out at those stores with those kids at Christmas time, I'll call these charities and I'll say, look, I don't have time to build backpacks, but I'll buy 1,000 of them. And there's somebody else that doesn't have the money, but they've got the time to go fill those backpacks up for Christmas toys. And so I do that's how I balance that, because I really am not available to give that time, as much as I would like to. And every time we do it, like today, with those first 20 recipients of the Ozzie Newsome Scholarship, just see it in their eyes.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, I enjoyed taking some pictures after practice. They were super happy.
Yeah.
And so I think since I've been here, from Heather to all the different things we do, there's always a lot of, especially around Christmas time and turkeys and giving back Thanksgiving. Yeah. There's always been a lot of different things.
Takes a lot of you guys.
Yeah.
I mean, especially during the season. I have always told people, ever since I've been in this, they'll say, what are you most shocked about? Or other people interviewing me ask questions, or just over a beer. And I'll say that how dedicated these players are when they're working 6 days a week to give their 1 day off back to the community. And I admire you all for it, because you came from instances, a lot of you, where you saw that hurt in your communities. And it's like, I just am marveled that you don't say, look, I've got this 1 day off, I'm sorry. Yeah. And you do, over and over again. And my hat's off to you.
And when you talk about time, I think since I've been pretty young, my days dealing with football have kind of been planned out.
Yeah.
What is your kind of daily schedule like as being an owner of a team? What kind of do you do exactly?
A little different during season and after season. Like we talked about in the season, I feel like that I am a consigliere to John, and I am constantly updated by Eric. So I'll talk to John and Eric a couple days a week. But I'm in Florida, and I golf 4 times a week, and I catch up with friends, and I go to dinner, and I am 62, so I'm deserving of kind of a semi-retirement. So I do that during the season. The season's more frustrating for me than the spring, because spring's eternal, and so like I said, I'm excited about the new draft of rookies we're going to be bringing in, and then during the season, it's very frustrating because I really can't do anything, right? I can't. I spend a lot of time being nervous, maybe drinking a little too much more wine than I should. Because don't you drink when you're nervous? Do you drink at all?
I don't really get too nervous.
Yeah, never.
The
Well, see, you're playing,
yeah,
and that's what I'm saying. I can't. I
Yeah,
get
you
more nervous. If I could do something to help you all, if I could actually do it, well, you'd run me over. I mean, obviously, I couldn't do anything on the field, but I feel a little helpless during the season, maybe, let's say that.
Did you ever do sports when you were younger?
I was terrible.
Oh, no.
Basketball in high school, and then a little football. And when I transferred to Severna Park High School from Severn, I told them, they made us run a mile for the first, like run a mile and time you. And I said, I used to play, DB. And the coach at Severna Park High School said, not with that time. And he made me a very small D end.
Oh,
so
man.
I was a very enthusiastic backup.
Well, you could look at him, so you own the team now. So that's
Oh, he
okay.
comes to my suite every year. He's still around.
Oh, nice.
Oh, I
Look
bring.
at that.
Oh, yeah. Old
Came
Coach
full
Borland.
circle. He was just motivating you.
Huh? He was motivating me. I was the first of his players to get into the NFL. He likes to say.
So, talk about vacation. You said you're 62.
Yeah.
How is that? One time you told me about a vacation story. It was a pretty cool vacation story, but you were on a yacht and doing the whole thing. What kind of is vacation like for you?
It's really just a change of scenery. Like going to Europe is really because my wife loves to travel, and I do it for her, give her that time. I still owe her Australia. I still owe her Africa. I might be getting out of the Africa trip because she just got a bunch of girlfriends that want to go, that kind of thing. So, but I'd like to do Australia and New Zealand, and sightseeing and learning and history and yeah, going to. I mean, my favorite experience in my life was. They had an opportunity. I think they had 2 or 3 tours at the end of the day at Sistine Chapel. And so you didn't walk in with 1,000 people and stand and look like this. And they had a guide and a security guy and my wife and I. And we got in, when we saw 10,000 people leaving, we were one of the 2, and you made a donation, and we got to go through the Vatican, end up in the Sistine Chapel in the quiet. And they pulled out 2 benches and let Renee and I lay down. So we spent 45 minutes with the guide telling us every single panel.
Wow.
And it was the most moving experience of my life.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
So I want to knock some of those things off,
Nice.
If I'm not jet skiing and landing on a deserted island and walking the beach and trying to sweat off that wine from the night before.
Do you have a favorite, like, I know that trip was great. Do you have a favorite place that you like to frequently travel to outside of the States?
Capri is my favorite. And
Where's Capri?
Capri is this island in the Amalfi coast of southern Italy.
I got to learn I like to travel.
Yeah.
I like to travel.
It's a really special place. It's out by itself. You fly into the mainland, you take a boat over or a helicopter, and it is old world. It hasn't changed much. Turns winter, so when November comes, every hotel closes.
Oh, wow.
Some of the locals stay there. And it's one of the most beautiful places in the world. We'll take boat days and go over to Sorrento or Positano, the other towns. But it is so quiet, and there's artists there that are painting all day and scenic views, and it's just a really low-key place. And so my wife likes to try a lot of different things, so when she finds that I like something, then it becomes her favorite because she knows that that's the way to talk me into going to Europe again. So. And
you've talked about, your wife Renee a lot. I think it's great to see couples grow old together. I think in my generation, it seems like when they hit a bump in the road, they call it quits early. What impact has she had in your life of you guys staying together in family?
Wow. For her, no drama. They say, honestly, they say she's just low maintenance. Number one, she's smarter than I am, which hopefully if you ever marry, trust me, it's very, very important.
That's the key. That's the key.
You have two choices in life: reminding your wife that she's not as smart as you, or having your wife remind you you're not as smart as her. And of the two, you're better off having a smart wife telling you you're not as smart as you think you are. So she's fun. She's fun. It'll be 38 years this summer, and she's just low maintenance. She's off on her own. She had to be when I was working. She raised the kids. You know, it was an 85-15 split. I mean, I was just gone to the point that I'd wake up in hotels and I wouldn't remember what city I was in. And she did it. And she did it like a champ. And she raised two great kids. And so, but she was just always comfortable in her own skin. And she didn't need me for anything except companionship, and she's got a great sense of humor. So it made it easy than marriage is for a lot of people.
No drama. I think I'm a fan. I'm a fan of the no drama. And I want to ask you another question about business. Okay. Recently, the Denver Broncos just sold for $4.5 billion.
Yeah.
When you see something like that, what do you kind of think of, on your, initial investment? I think NFL teams are really great investments.
Yeah.
What kind of goes through your mind? Do you ever think about, like, don't want to cash out? Like, when I do cash out one day or whatever you –
Yeah.
What kind of goes through your mind when you see that?
I've made the point that, which you've met my sons, they're not involved in the business. I don't think that it's there's a lot of pressure in a high profile business like this, and I never wanted this to be a multi-generational thing, like the Rooneys and the Maras and the Joneses are set up. Steve, and I've known him since I got into the league. I just didn't think that was in my cards. I just didn't think that was fair to the kids to bring them up in an environment that said you're going to have a Baltimore treasure that you're going to have to be the stewards of. I just didn't think that was fair to them, and I think it wrecks a lot of families. So I had never committed to anybody that I would continue to run this for the rest of my life. I said, as long as I am having fun doing it, I will continue to do it. Because if I know there's an exit, then I can look at things in a much more settled way. Nobody's tying me to this. I didn't promise that I'm going to turn it over to my kids when I die and things like that. So it actually does take a little pressure off. So honestly, when that 4 years ago, I guess, the Carolina Panthers went for 2.3. So to say that I was shocked when I heard Denver was for sale and it was going to go over 4 and it went to 4.65, yeah, it's shocking. But that's like saying if your parents have been in their house for 30 years and they find out their house doubled, did it really help them? It didn't help. It is what it is. So I'm gonna leave a lot of money to charity, most of it, and my goal is to want to give it away a lot because I enjoy the things I did today with those 20 kids that are going on scholarship, so I don't want to wait till I'm dead to give all the money away. And I think that's probably why in the back of my mind I thought there could come a time when I'm 72 and I say, you know what, enough. I need to focus on sell it, take that money, and spend the next hopefully 10 years giving all that money away. So the more the merrier.
The more the merrier.
Yeah.
Speaking on business, I think I didn't ask you this earlier. Starting a business, if I wanted to start a business, for anyone that might be watching,
yeah,
I've been thinking of a business plan and what foundations they want to kind of base those on. Where would you start on a road like that?
I would start by reading, researching, find something that you think you could do well, better than others. Some people say love. I had to spend my entire life explaining to people what I did for a living. So you put engineers to work at the Fortune 500 companies. Well, why do they need you? Well, because they can't find them. I'm a recruiting specialist. And I would put these people on, and then they're my employees there. And so it didn't sound too sexy, but it made a lot of money. And so I was happy making a lot of money. I didn't have to do, somebody wants to open up a flower shop. It's their goal for their whole life. That will make them happy. Well, that's great. I didn't have any money growing up. So I would have taken on anything that I thought that I could succeed at, and that's what brought me happiness. What I will say to you is, don't do a damn thing until you retire. Because if you try and get into most businesses doing it part-time,
Doesn't work.
guys like me will eat you alive. I would love to have part-time competitors where they're distracted by by your career, your first career. So I would say that do not try and make a killing in the stock market. Don't let friends talk you into investing in their business, because when the crap hits the fan, they don't work like you would work with your money at stake. They say they will, but they won't, because the wolf isn't at the door. They'll just move on to somebody else, some other deal, right? So those would be my recommendation for you and any of the other players is don't compete against people that need this for survival, because you'll never win, right? Save your money, put it away, invest it in low growth stuff, so that by the time you get to the end, you haven't lost money in a bunch of stupid ventures that you got guilted into or you thought you could do part-time, because you'll fail at all of them. If you get to the end and you have your accomplishments behind you and all that money, then you will be really careful about which one you dive 100% of your time and 100% of your money into. And then I'll believe that you'll become a Pro Bowler in that industry too.
Calais Campbell just told me, wait till you retire, and it's all there.
That's right.
Plenty of time. All right, we're coming up on the tail end. I have a couple interesting questions here.
Okay.
All right? Mm-hmm. All right. So you're on an island.
Yeah.
Or no, you have to take one player onto an island. These are two different scenarios, old school and now. You got three guys. You got Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, and Terrell Suggs. You're going to be on an island for a month, and you have to take one of those guys. Which one of those guys do you take? And why?
Suggs would keep me most entertained.
That's what I was thinking too, but
right? Ray,
you'll be motivated.
well, he never met a challenge that he didn't meet.
Very true. Very true.
None of those three did.
Yeah.
Right? But Ray's as strong as Suggs. Ray's as smart as Ed. I'm taking Ray, because I can hide behind him.
There we go. Okay. All right. So that was post-Raven, some Raven legends. Bringing it to the current, it's me, Lamar, and Mark Andrews. I know you want to say me, but don't let that distract you, because I'm here in front of you. Who are you taking out of those three?
Are you stronger than Mark? Are you scrappy with Mark?
Mark said he could, out of 10 routes, he could beat me on 9. So
Did he?
Obviously, he thinks.
We're going to find that out in July, though,
Yeah, I
aren't we,
guess
when
we're
the
gonna
pads
have,
come
yeah,
on?
I guess we're really going to have to find that out.
Uh-huh.
We're going to have to keep track.
I've been watching the two of you for a while. I don't think it's 9 out of 10.
You said it, not me.
That's
You said it, not me.
exactly.
So
Well, I
that's
think probably you, just because I've gotten to know you better. So I would have a little faith that you would feel a little more protective of me. Like the old man there, right? Like you, not as big as Ray, but I think I could hide behind you, and I think that you would feel a little more obligated since I did this, podcast, that you would have to take care of me.
Okay. There's never been a lifetime contract in the NFL for a player. Lifetime.
Yeah.
Could I be the first to do that?
That's interesting.
Lifetime, just I'd be around. Obviously, I wouldn't be able to play like after.
Well,
40.
Ozzy's on it,
Yeah, Ozzy.
right? So Ozzy literally went from a Hall of Fame, drafted in the first round, Hall of Fame career, actually coached for his first year.
Ozzy coached for his first year.
He was a coach. They put him into coaching, and he dabbled in the off season in personnel and liked personnel more, and went into full-time personnel for Art Modell, because Art Modell wasn't going to let him get out of his sight, because he loved Ozzy so much. He said, "Pick a job. You're not leaving me." And so Ozzy was drafted in '78. So that's 44 years of his life. And when he was ready to step down and give that head job to Eric, who he had mentored, right, for 20 years, 20-some years, I said, "You're not going anywhere. Forget it. You're not, going off in the sunset. Figure out your role. I'll reduce your pay from the top. Eric gets a bump. You get a drop. And I've watched the two of you work side by side forever. And I'm not going to lose you." So I felt like I had the benefit of two GMs all these years when Eric's patiently waited around to take Ozzy's spot. And I said, "I'm not losing that advantage over my competition, so you're not going anywhere." And so Ozzy didn't want to go anywhere. So Ozzy stayed, and Ozzy is one of the closest things to a lifetime contract that there is. So, you got a long way to go.
A long way to go.
44
There's
years.
There's a chance.
Huh?
There's definitely
There's a chance.
Okay.
Yes.
You'll like this, because I know you're into golf. You're going to play a foursome. Who are the three golfers you're bringing with you?
Anybody?
Anybody. I don't even know my golfers like that, but
Yeah.
all I know is about Tiger and the
Yeah,
guys.
I certainly would take Tiger.
So Tiger's one of the guys. Okay.
Dead or alive?
Dead or alive?
Bobby Jones.
Bobby Jones.
Bobby Jones. I'll go with James, my 6-year-old grandson, who's starting to whack that ball pretty good.
Starting to whack it pretty good.
Because then he'd have the opportunity to say he golfed with Tiger Woods.
Nice. I do not. I'm going to get good at golf one of these days. It won't be soon, but it's going to get there. Speaking of golf, where have you played your best round of golf at? Where were you?
Whew. It's different.
Every course is so different.
Yeah, like my best scores.
You just felt like you just walked out of there
on
like you just did the thing.
I think my best, cleanest round was at Baker's Bay down in the Bahamas, where Renee and I own a home. Tom Fazio built it, big wide fairways, big greens, and his idea was, he's one of the best he is, I think, the best golf architect living today. He said that he built it because the average wind down there is 15 miles an hour. So he had to build the course wide enough to be safe enough that if I'm a 10 handicap, I should be able to shoot 10 over par on a day with 15 mile an hour winds. Because he said if I didn't, then everybody would play terrible and they wouldn't love the course. So I played the course a lot. I was playing with a couple friends that I play with a lot. Everything clicked, and I shot a 74, and that's my best round ever. So that was the best. But playing Pebble Beach, getting to play Augusta, there's certain places where you're just happy if you play to your handicap. Doesn't have to be your best round, but to go to a place like that and then shoot a really respectable round to the famous ones, that's as good as it gets.
All right, this is an interesting question. I don't know, prime fitness, when were you in your best prime of shape?
Wow.
You're in great shape now, of course.
Believe it or not, it was later in life. Monty Sanders, have you met Monty?
Monty Sanders.
He was Ed and Ray's personal trainer here in Baltimore. He's still here, guiding a lot of good people. You'd love to meet him. Ray turned me on to him. I was ready to get in better shape, and he killed me. For a year and a half, he killed me. And I'd say, you know, like I never gave it up, and I had my bursts, right? And I remember when I was like 30 years old, I was out of shape because I had been running my business, and I lost, like went from 213 to 193 pounds. So I was probably my leanest and muscle then. So there's been 3 of them, but as far as pure strength, believe it or not, it probably came at 45 years old.
Wow, all right, well.
So there's hope for you.
You're 40.
For your lifetime contract.
Good. You're 45 years old, all right? This is a scenario. You're in a room with every single player that has ever played since you've been here. Everyone has on boxing gloves, including you. You got to single out one of these guys that you think you could take to get out of this room.
God, who was that punter?
Yeah, you got to pick one of those guys.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, you know, I might have to go out Matt Stover.
Matt
you know?
Stover.
Well, I may have to. I got to pick a. You know,
I guess punters are.
The punters are people too.
They're people too.
Right?
They are people too.
I'm trying to think of who probably is. You know, some of those DBs are smaller than Matt, but they're scrappier, and they're probably hitting the weights a little more and stuff like that.
But you're 45 and you
at 45, I might have been able to take Matt when he was 35. Maybe.
Matt Stover.
No, I've got a couple really fun stories about that. You got a minute?
Yeah, we got a minute. We love the stories.
Okay.
We love the stories.
I was new here. We were at the old facility, and I was in pretty darn good shape at 40 years old. And I was sitting on the tarp with Ozzy, and we were talking about the different guys. And I said to Jeff, the head trainer, I said, what would a 40-year-old guy like me run a 40 in? Like, you know, we've been talking about 40s, and he said, I don't know, like a 5'3" or something like that would probably, how old are you? I said 42 or whatever. He said, I'm probably a 5'3". And I was like immediately taken back, kind of insulted. I was like, cause you know, you don't realize what the tenths of a second are, right? Yeah. It's only 40 yards. And I said, 5'3"? I said, no, I gotta be better than that. And he just kind of smiled, and I said, Oz, and Oz goes, like he didn't want to answer. And I was like, yeah. I said, I heard Warren Sapp ran like a 5:05. And he said, yeah, I did. I said, you mean Warren Sapp could run me, like I could smack him and run away from him and he could catch me? And they said he would track you like a dog. And my imagination of picturing a guy like Warren Sapp being faster than me was quite a revelation. I was like, okay, these guys are good. Then there was another time in that same time period, right after that happened, that I was on the treadmill at Westminster, and Marquise Douglas, was it Marquise Douglas? Defensive tackle, gets on the treadmill next to me, and I'm jogging. We have nice glass, and we're looking out over the fields, and I said, hello, Marquise. He said, how are you, Mr. Bisciotti? I said, fine. And he starts on there like this, so I'm like, oh, no, man, now I got to start comparing myself to him, right? So I'm jacking it up a little bit, like maybe a little faster than I wanted to, and he goes over there, and he's like this, and then a minute later, he's like this, and then in his third minute, he's past me. And then in the fourth minute and the fifth minute, he's got this thing cranking up, and he's flying at 330 pounds, and he is flying. And I'm not going to put it up that fast because I'm going to go off the back of the treadmill. And that's when I realized that every one of you is superior athletes. And so I hope Matt Stover will say, I don't mind that you picked me.
Man, I was thinking you were gonna put some cleats on there. I was thinking that's where that story was going.
No. When I found out that Warren Sapp was a lot faster than me, I thought, no, I would do damage to this body.
I mean,
It's not built for speed.
I've seen a lot of, I feel like every older guy, once they thinks they still got it and
No.
try it.
If you never had it, then you don't have to think you still got it.
Yeah,
So it's
I
better
guess.
to be a realist.
I guess that's true. All right. Last question.
Yes, sir.
You're very successful, obviously. Own a team, started a business. It's kind of, we're always trying to get better every day. I feel like as personal, business, all the things you do. Is there anything next? What is next, if you have anything for you? Just enjoying life and just.
Yeah, I don't. Like I said, I would like the other years of my life to lean more philanthropic. You have to think pretty selfishly when you're building a business and you have 1,000 people behind you that rely on you. No, I'm so content in life. Everybody right now is healthy and happy. And so that's it. You know, I just love spending time with my family, and I'm enjoying finding new and better things. I've turned my family foundation over to my family office. Ryland runs my family office, who is Dick Cass's son-in-law. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that. I was at the family office, though,
Yeah.
at the
Well,
stadium.
Ryland is Dick Cass's son-in-law.
Okay.
He married Dick's daughter. And so he came and we started a family office, and it runs my investments and it runs my philanthropy. And I convinced both my sons to come in and go to work with him. And of course, they're naturally, like I was, geared to the business side and love looking at opportunities to invest in and things like that. But they're good guys, and they were, I'd like to say, raised well. And I see them gravitating towards the foundation and the philanthropy more. So it's a great way for them to spend their time and time for me to spend time with them. But that's it. I would somehow like to fight off the golf aging thing. I've been hovering around a 10. I don't think I'm getting any better, but my goal is to keep getting older and not get any worse. And then spend a lot of my time giving money away to people that deserve it.
Steve, sounds like a good life.
Not bad.
It's a great life. Thank you for your time, for coming on
Pleasure.
Studio 44. I appreciate it.
Great being with you. Have a nice summer.